Meet Sophia Loren at 86. This is how she lives now. John Aston, 91 years old. Although the late, great Raul Julia is renowned for making the role of Gomez Addams his own, the original blueprint was laid down by veteran legend John Aston. Aston played the character in the 60s version of the TV show, which is where the iconic theme tune is also derived. But Aston was more than an Addams. He also had a role in the 1961 West Side Story and the 1976 rendition of Freaky Friday. Aston was also married to actress Patty Duke for 13 years, and he became stepfather to her son Sean Aston, who's notable for playing the Hobbit Samwise Gamgee in The Lord of the Rings. Robert Wagner, 91 years old. Robert Wagner's career is crested and troughed numerous times in his life, but his most prominent period in terms of career was between the late 60s and mid-80s when he starred in sitcoms like It Takes a Thief, Switch, and Heart to Heart. Before this, he had roles in films like Pink Panther and The Towering Inferno. His next significant period was in the late 90s and aughts when he had a supporting role in the Austin Powers series as number 2, and then a host of recurring roles on popular series. Some of these include 2.5 Men and NCIS. Wagner even has a movie coming out called Trailblazers. Janice Paige, 98 years old. Though she started as a singer at a military club called the Hollywood Canteen, Janice Paige gained prominence as an actress. She initially starred in low-budget musicals, but gained prominence after leaving Hollywood for Broadway, and then returning after successful roles in The Pajama Game and Remains to be Seen. Paige returned to Hollywood and received much more respectable roles comparatively, and starred alongside Fred Astaire in Silk Stockings and Doris Day in Please Don't Eat the Daisies. She, however, couldn't resist the allure of singing and acting in theater, so she returned to Broadway in 1963. Glennis Johns, 97 years old. Glennis Johns was such a creative mind that she created a character in a play called A Little Night Music. The character's name was Desiree Armfeldt, and Johnson would play her so distinctly that she won a Tony Award for it. The singer and actress, born in South Africa while her musician parents were on tour there, is also noted for other roles. Johnson played Winifred Banks in the 1964 Mary Poppins movie alongside Dick Van Dyke, and was also nominated for an Oscar for her work on the 1960 film The Sundowners. After Olivia de Havilland passed away in 2020, Johnson became the oldest living Oscar nominee. Jacqueline Bisset, 76 years old. 1968 was an excellent year for actress Jacqueline Bisset. She put in 3 stellar performances in 3 top movies: The Detective, Bullet, and The Sweet Ride. For the last one, she received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Newcomer. This respect led to more roles and another Golden Globe nomination, this time for her role in the 1984 film Under the Volcano. Bisset would eventually break her Golden Globe duck 45 years after her first nomination when she won a Best Supporting Actress, going in 2013. Besides her brilliant acting talent, she's fluent in English, Italian, and French, and she's currently filming a movie called Birds of Paradise. Cara Williams, 95 years old. Cara Williams took Hollywood by storm in the 1950s, starring in films like The Great Diamond Robbery and The Defiant Ones. Her role in the latter earned her an Oscar nomination, and she would also earn an Emmy nomination for her role as Gladys Porter in the popular, if short-lived show Pete and Gladys. But by 1978, she did her last film and opted to retire and become an interior decorator instead. She had a turbulent with 2 failed marriages. She spent a large part of her life married to one man. That was to entrepreneur Asher Dan, with whom she stayed with from 1964 until he died in 2018. Sophia Loren, 86 years old. More than just a beautiful woman, Sophia Loren has won several awards, including an Oscar for Best Actress in 1962 for the film Two Women, the first for a foreign language film. She started as a model, appearing at a beauty pageant at the age 14. Loren began acting in 1950, eventually signing a lucrative contract with Paramount Pictures in 1956. In her career, she would also win a Grammy Award. 5 Golden Globe Awards, and a BAFTA, among others, for her starring roles in films like The Pride and the Passion and It Started in Naples. Loren was cast in an upcoming movie called The Life Ahead. Mildred Corman, 95 years old. Mildred Corman is probably best known because of her sister Mary. The elder Corman was well known as the main character of the famous Silent Kids series. Mildred would often join her sister on episodes where crowds were needed, but she did eventually carve out her legacy in the industry. She did this mostly as an adult and with a name change. Mildred worked under the pseudonym Ricky Van Dusen and worked for various magazines, including Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. But most of her roles were either small or uncredited, and she decided to retire and settle down with her family. Bob Newhart, 91 years old. If you've ever watched Big Bang Theory and wondered whether the show Professor Proton was real, then wonder no more. It wasn't a real show, but the man who played him is a comedy legend. Bob Newhart was renowned for a deadpan style of comedy that brought him great success in the 60s and 70s. He starred in shows like The Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart and other eponymous show called The Bob Newhart Show. Despite Professor Proton only being a character for The Big Bang Theory, he is a character that won Newhart his first Primetime Emmy Award in 2013. Newhart also has 3 Grammy Awards for comedy recordings. Terry Kilburn, 94 years old. Terry Kilburn was a prolific child actor whose first role was at 11 years old as the character Tiny Tim in the 1938 version of the holiday story A Christmas Carol. He landed the role 1 year after moving to the United States from Britain. In the space of 2 years, between 1938 and 1940, Kilburn had roles in 9 films, including Lord Jeff, Goodbye Mr. Chips, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and The Swiss Family Robinson. Kilburn retired from acting in 1969. He became the artistic director of the Meadowbrook Theater at Oakland University from 1970 to 1994, which does an annual rendition of A Christmas Carol. Connie Stevens, 82 years old. In 2019, actress and icon Connie Stevens returned to acting after a 3-year break from the industry. She needed a break since she'd been working in the industry since the 50s. Stevens has been known to take time away from acting, but was also one of the busiest actresses in the late 50s and early 60s. In that period, she starred in films like Young and Dangerous, 18 and Anxious, Rockabye Baby, and The Party Crashers. Besides acting, Stevens also has a line of cosmetic products. She also had a minor singing career with her highest charting single called 16 Reasons. Her last acting role was in the film Just Before I Go. Clint Eastwood, 90 years old. If his movie roles are anything to go by, Clint Eastwood is one of the toughest guys in the world. From his role as the Man with No Name in the Dollar Trilogy, to his roles as anti-hero cop Harry Callahan, aka Dirty Harry, the man oozes a sense of toughness and straight talk that makes him intimidating. It's unclear if that tough exterior is so tough in person, but he has managed to produce the success he had on screen behind the lens as well with his Oscar-winning films Unforgiven and $1 Million Baby. His last work was on the film Richard Jewell, which picked up an Oscar nomination in 2020. Ann-Margret, 80 years old. Ann-Margret was billed as the female version of Elvis Presley. She also starred alongside the King of Rock and Roll in the critically acclaimed Viva Las Vegas. Margaret also had roles in classic films like The Cincinnati Kid, Train Robbers, and Grumpy Old Men. She wasn't billed as the female Elvis for her acting ability. Margaret has released more than 10 studio albums, including a hugely successful 2001 gospel album called God is Love, The Gospel Sessions. In 2019, she dabbled in voice acting with a role in the adult animated series Happy, and has been cast in the upcoming movie Welcome to Pine Grove. Bette Midler, 75 years. Bette Midler's 50-plus year career can be traced back to off-Broadway plays and a stint singing at a gay bathhouse called the Continental Baths. Between then and now, she's won 3 Grammy Awards, 4 Golden Globe Awards, 3 Emmy Awards, and most recently a Tony Award for her role in Hello, Dolly. Some of her hit songs include renditions of The Wind Beneath My Wings, Do You Wanna Dance, and From a Distance. She made her acting debut in a movie called The Rose, which also earned her an Oscar nomination and a Golden Globe win. Midler is starring in the upcoming film The Glorias. Richard Dean Anderson, 71 years old. He spent the 80s and 90s playing in one successful TV show after another. Richard Dean Anderson only started acting in 1977, landing a role in General Hospital. He was eventually able to land the role that would shape his career, starring in the MacGyver series. Today, with the series being successfully rebooted, we can't help but wonder what he's been doing. After all, the last time we saw him was in an episode of Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23 in 2013. It turns out that he's been enjoying his retirement with his hard-earned $30 million fortune. Vera Miles, 91 years old. The last time that Vera Miles undertook a project was in 1995 when she played in Separate Lives. Today, she's 91 years old, enjoying her retirement in her Palm Desert house in California. She prefers to keep as far away from the spotlight as possible. Vera's performances will never be forgotten. After all, she got to star in some of Hitchcock's films, including Psycho and its sequel. She's been under the spotlight since graduating high school and winning the Miss Kansas title in the late 1940s. It's safe to assume that she's now taking a well-deserved rest with her $8 million fortune.